Many people in the world know they cannot eat certain foods, oysters or strawberries or eggs or cucumbers or sugar or something else, without getting very uncomfortable and maybe even quite sick. A person with a food allergy of this kind can go around feeling a lot of self-pity, complaining to everyone that he or she is unfairly deprived, and constantly whining about not being able or allowed to eat something delicious. Obviously, even though we may feel cheated, it isn't wise to ignore our own physiological makeup. If our limitations are ignored, severe discomfort or illness may result. To stay healthy and reasonably happy, we must learn to live within the bodies we have. Tonight, we talk about alcoholism as an incurable, progressive, and fatal disease.
The backbone of the Recovered Podcast is our premium subscribers. Our premium members sustain the Recovered Podcast and allow us to be online and available to the new person in recovery. If you agree that serving the new person is important, then consider joining us, premium subscribers, in this 12-step work. In addition, upgrading to premium will give you access to our back catalog of over 1,100 episodes. Because of premium members, we are self-supporting through our own contributions now. For more information, just go to recoveredcast.com and tap on the premium membership button. If you would like official Recovered Podcast t-shirts, coffee mugs, and yes, now water bottles, then consider becoming a sustaining partner with us here at Recovered. For more information, just go to recoveredcast.com and tap on the Sustaining Partners button. This week, Sam, Chris, Felicia, Mike, Laura, Joel, and Todd, they made their sustaining partner donations. So thank you very much, Sam, Chris, Felicia, Mike, Laura, Joel, and Todd. This episode is sponsored by Kelly, Swetha, Teresa, Michael, and Kurt. They use the donation button found on our website at recoveredcast.com. So Kelly, Swetha, Teresa, Michael, and Kurt, this episode is for you. Imported from Detroit, we are Recovered. Welcome to Recovered, and welcome to episode number 1172. And we call it Recovered because this is a show about men and women who have recovered. Recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. My name is Mark, and I'll be your host. Along with me is Gigi, Angelo, and Buddy. How are you people?
Woohoo! Wonderful.
So pull up a couch and join us on this journey called life.
Now remember, we at the Recovered Podcast, we don't speak for any 12-step community. We only try to share our experience, strength, and hope in this life of recovery. So, we're not a secret society, but we do try to remain anonymous.
But people, we're not here to talk about the podcast, but we're here to do
this podcast.
All right, let's do this podcast. Gigi, tonight the topic is alcoholism as an incurable, progressive, and fatal disease. Now, we try never to lose sight of the unchangeable fact of our alcoholism, but we learn not to brood or feel sorry for ourselves or talk about it at the time. We accept it as a characteristic of our body, like our height or our need for glasses or like any allergies we may have. Then we can figure out how to live comfortably, not bitterly, with that knowledge, as long as we start by simply avoiding that first drink just for today. All right, that is coming, Gigi, out of the book Living Sober. So that's his conference-approved material. We are making our way through the book. Clyde gave this as a suggestion, and so there's many topics. So it's really kind of back to basics. This is really good material. a lot of us use this book. We give it to our new sponsees as a way of dealing with early recovery. But I think it's really valuable for us to go back, at least for me, to go back to those early days and remember what it was like, right? For me, that's important. But when you see this topic, incurable, progressive, fatal, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you, Gigi?
I was relieved when people said it was a disease, that it was, an allergy of the body. And I never thought about it running in families or being genetic or, I just thought I was screwed up and I was the only one who had the problem. So I remember about a year sober, after sitting in meetings and so on and learning about the fatal, progressive state of body that we have that will take its addiction and it essentially kill us with it. I'm riding in the car to Thanksgiving with my mom and my dad, and they're talking and they're saying, oh yeah, so-and-so was an alcoholic and died of alcoholism, and my father was and I had never heard all these things. I was just astonished.
That was my experience as well. I talked about this a little bit last week, and that is when I came into the program and I started to look at my family tree, there were some apples there that looked just like me, and the problem was, well, not the problem, but the reality was that it did take a couple of my cousins' lives. And so it was an eye-opener, a learning experience for me also, as I was walking through those early days of recovery. Angelo, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you
Welcome
too. Good
back
to be
to
here.
The virtual studio.
Thank
Where
you.
are you podcasting from, Angelo?
Charleston, South Carolina.
All right, welcome.
Hey, y'all.
So what about it? This topic, incurable, progressive, fatal, sounds negative, but what are some of your thoughts when you hear this?
So when I first read this, a couple things came to mind. Gigi alluded to this, the allergy of the body. And then that second part, when I learned that it's also an obsession of the mind, I could get my hands around that, because I had tried before I came into this program to not drink or to try to limit my drinking. And I couldn't do it. And I didn't understand how liquid had such a stronghold on me, and that I couldn't break it. And I thought that maybe it was willpower, and it wasn't willpower when I took that first drink. And then the obsession of the mind started to make sense to me. And it's like, yeah, if I really thought about it, I started getting obsessed about getting drunk, during the week. I couldn't wait for the weekends to come. And then as I stayed sober and really had the fog lift, I started thinking, okay, it really wasn't. It was like Tuesday or Wednesday, and by Thursday I started drinking. Then it was Wednesday I started drinking, okay? And then it started to get to be, I was defenseless against that first one and capable of doing just about anything. So that two parts, the physical allergy of the body, helped me, but it was that obsession of the mind that helped me to accept more of this thing that I had.
Buddy, welcome to the studio as well. It's good to see you again. Where are you podcasting from?
Center, Alabama.
All right, welcome. What about it? This topic is really important. It's really an important concept for us to really grasp. At least for me, it was really important for me to accept. But what comes first to mind when you saw these notes?
When I saw these notes, I was thinking about the fact that there really is no cure for my alcoholism, and I can get depressed if I stay there. If I think about it being incurable and it's progressive and it will kill me. But if I stay there, it's not a good place. But there may not be a cure for my alcoholism, but there is a solution. And that's the important thing, is that we have a way out of this. And for me, alcohol is a gift. It really is the greatest gift I've ever been given. So many times the gifts we get look like something, negative at first, but alcohol led me in a way that I have more peace and joy than I could ever imagine having. And it came as a direct result of my alcoholism. So alcoholism may be fatal, but we have a solution that's not.
Well, that's really profound. And if you're new, listen to what Buddy said, because it might be difficult to hear that alcoholism as gift. But I think that maybe the solution is the gift. What do you think about that? I understand that that is a direct result of.
Yeah, it could be. That's just my experience and the way I look at it.
Right.
Folks don't have to look at it the way I do. But I really do see, the solution's a gift, but I would have never found that solution if it were not for alcohol. Because I would have never surrendered. I was a successful real estate guy. I would have died drinking. Or if I'd never been an alcoholic, I would have never found the peace that I found now without coming to a moment of surrender, which was caused by the alcohol.
Gigi, I alluded to this thought right after your initial share, and that is looking at the family tree and seeing the disease alive in my relatives. I could see in my relatives how it was at least progressive. I could see by being around them over the drinking career, especially with my one cousin Carl when he came back from Vietnam, how that disease, the way he acted, was definitely progressing. He was definitely changing in a big time way. And he was becoming more and more isolated. He was becoming more and more unpredictable. He was becoming a lot of the things I could see in myself. And ultimately, it was fatal for him. And so for me to be able to see it in him first, through the lens of recovery, gave me this realization that I too have this. And I too I am on that same path. And so my story could be his story, but you people told me there was a different way, that there was a solution, and that I didn't have to go down that path, and that in fact it is incurable, because I really didn't think about that too much, but no, those are some of my initial thoughts. But Gigi, you talked about that it was a relief to find out that you had a disease. Why don't you expand on that a little bit? What do you mean by that? How is the relief coming?
Well, I never did think of it as a disease. I thought there was something seriously wrong with me because I couldn't succeed in relationships. I was looking at my third divorce. I was a bundle of nerves. I was, I just couldn't believe that I was in my third marriage and already sleeping around. So I went running to a psychologist saying, what in the world is wrong with this picture? And he said, you're in the early stages of alcoholism. And that was fairly palatable to me, but I didn't really get the idea until I started going to meetings and hearing other people talking about it, where I heard about the disease concept. I started reading the literature. I started learning that this was not a personal failure of mine in terms of my character, that I did have what's now considered a legitimate disease, just like, diabetes or anything else.
But you talked about in the opening about that you could get depressed. If you think about it as incurable, progressive, and fatal, and you leave it at that, it can be a downer. It can really make us depressed about who we are. How do you get over that?
I did not get over that until I started working the program, till I worked the steps, and I saw that there was a solution. We hear in recovery that alcohol is but a symptom. When I first heard that, then I realized that the only steps that mention alcohol are the first one and the 12th one. Looks like alcohol would be mentioned in every step. I would read the first step, and I thought it said I was powerless over drinking, that that my drinking was unmanageable. That's what I thought it said for years. I said, wait a minute, that doesn't say that. It says my life's unmanageable. So, that whole idea of my problem being alcohol had to shift. While the problem was alcohol, it was depressing. But when I realized alcohol was not the real problem, That was a symptom of the problem. Once I realized that, then I saw that there was hope. Well, I saw hope when I came to the first meeting, Mark, because I saw people who were recovering. And I thought, you know, I'm a lot smarter than them. If it worked for them, I know I can figure it out. And that idea of me figuring it out took me 6 more years.
Yeah.
But that's why surrender is so important to me, because it was so difficult for me to surrender. I was the guy that figured it out and then tried to do it better than you. That doesn't work with recovery. It didn't work for me.
Angela, what about you when you were new? I mean, how old were you coming in the program? What's your sobriety date? How old were you?
My sobriety date is 9/1/85. I got sober, I was 21 and a half. And I, by the grace of God, have stayed sober this entire time.
So the lead in, Angelo talks about it, you know, it's really important for us not to be downcast about this whole disease problem that we have. But what about it as a 21-year-old coming in the program? Did you ever feel a little bitter? A little bitter about having this disease called alcoholism?
So as far as the bitter aspect, I wasn't bitter because I'd gone through treatment, so they gave me some tools, okay? And I was a little bitter about having to have to attend meetings. Certainly was bitter about that, but I thought there had to be some other way. And when as part of the treatment, when I went through, they gave us this thing called antabuse. And what I was told was if you drank on antabuse, you would get violently ill. And of course, you know, I was skeptical, didn't believe it. I thought, you know, this is just, you know, and I didn't drink.
Okay. I was going to say, wow, that was explosive apparently, but go ahead.
But my higher power seen fit to put lots of examples, with a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight, a lot of examples in my path. And I was less than a year sober, started to get to be friends with a guy. And guess what he tried to do? He tried to drink on antabuse.
Okay.
Guess where he ended up? He ended up in the hospital. Okay. Then a couple more people tried. And so I said to myself, you know, I'm just not going to risk that. Why would I do that? That's just dumb. Now, in an alcoholic fog, different story. Okay. But as I started to really embrace this program, and it took me several months to embrace the program, that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. But when I started to get in the middle of this program, some cool things happened, but some other things happened too. You know, we talked about fatal, and I'm going to just briefly touch on that. And you know, the old timers would say to you, yeah, you know, you drink, you're going to die. You drink, you're going to die. And I'm like, I'm 21 years old. I'm 22 years old. You have no idea what you're talking about. There's no way that is in my future. And then guess what happened? Somebody was an example. And they went out and drank. And they didn't come back. And this was a person, I thought, this young person, I thought, I mean, they just had this program. And there's just no way. And they went out and drank. And the first time they drank, they didn't come back. And it's like, wow. And then other young people that I was hanging out with went out and tried it. And they came back and they said, everything that the old timers have told us about it being progressive is absolutely 100% correct. I can attest to the fact, I'm not lying right now. I know there is no doubt in my mind now that I'm an alcoholic. And I thought, wow, what another great example. I don't necessarily have to go and test those waters. But a funny thing happened to me as I stayed sober a while. And my mind started playing tricks on me. And I started thinking, you know, did I really have a drinking problem? Maybe I can go out and test the waters. Maybe I can. And then I end up at a meeting where somebody's having the same thoughts. An old timer piped up and said, you know, this is a 4-part disease. And when the physical clears and the fog lifts, the obsession of the mind has nowhere to go. And that's when you need to lean on the steps. Because your mind is trying to tell you that you don't have a problem. Look how much better you've gotten. Look at the weight you've lost. Look at all the physical activity you're capable of. Look at all the things you're accomplishing now that you're sober. You could probably drink again successfully. But again, kept getting these examples of people who had gone out, come back, and told me, it's just not possible. You just can't do it. So the message was getting driven home, and I'm here to attest that I've seen many over the years go out and try. And if that allergy of the body isn't true, certainly the obsession of the mind. And today it's more about, I'm completely on board with my allergy. I know that. But now I am on board with that whole mental aspect. And when I get what the old timers call stinking thinking, that's when I know that I need to stop, pause, and I've been given tools. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit here too. But and some things that I've learned, coping mechanisms. They called it a toolbox where I got sober. And you need to continue to put tools in the toolbox because you never know when you're going to need them. And meetings are a good tool to put in your toolbox, but sometimes you need to go to whatever that right amount of meetings is for you. And for me, it's when I know I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. And that's when I know I need to hit a meeting, and that just strengthens those tools, kind of bonds them. I know I'm talking a lot right now, and I apologize. I'm kind of hogging the airways, but the message I want the newcomers to hear is that 24 hours, that's what you get. You get a daily reprieve, contingent upon maintenance of a spiritual condition. However strong or whatever the belief is, you get to have whatever that is. And it is entirely possible to not go to your go-to response in life. And that's picking up and seeing and testing the waters. Because I know I've seen a lot of people who've picked up and never made it back.
Well, Angelo, your example testifies to the fact that staying in the herd, staying in the program affords us that opportunity to observe other people that have this disease, just like I do, their experience of going back out and what that's like, and staying plugged into the meetings and hearing their stories as they come back, or hearing the stories that they don't make it back, how that was a real tool for you in your toolbox in dealing with this disease that you've come to find out and believe that you have. But what about it as a 21-year-old, those normal friends that you had that had the capacity and the ability to be able to drink normal? Did you ever feel jealousy or any sort of envy about that experience, about their ability to do it and you can't?
That's a great point, Mark. Absolutely. You know, there were some what I thought were friendships that I had formed. And as a 21-year-old, that was my social outlet, if you will. At the end, I was changing friends a lot because, well, they started approaching me about my drinking, okay? And I did what most people early in the program want to do, is they want to go and save all their friends because they must be alcoholics too. I can't be alone in this. But the reality is a lot of them did not drink like I did, okay? And so now I don't have a social outlet, okay? And I'm feeling socially outcast, I guess is the best way to say that. And I didn't know where I fit. And alcohol was that friend that allowed me to fit in wherever I went. I showed up with a fifth of Jack Daniels and everybody's my buddy, right? Now I've got to learn how to show up, if I can even show up, okay? But early on, I couldn't be around it, okay? There's another old saying that the old timers used to tell us is, you don't go to a whorehouse for a cheeseburger. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I can't go to the bar? I can't. What about family events where they're drinking? And so they said, if you have a valid reason, there's an out for this alcoholic. If you have a valid reason, then go ahead. So I was going back and trying to meet with these social friends that I socially drank with, okay, and try to hang out with them. And it was awkward because I'm sipping on an iced tea or a Coca-Cola or whatever it is, and they're not. And I'm like, shit. what appeared to be they were having a good time. But again, that example happened, Mark. And they tipped the scale, and they went to that point where they started getting slobbering drunk.
Okay.
And I'm like, I recognize that. And that's the point where I used to kick in and really do a lot of stupid things, very stupid things. So yeah, it's a little hard for a 21-year-old who's social to know what to do and where to fit in. But I know that it's possible. Just another 24 hours. That's all I need. Get to a meeting, and the program gave me the tools to open up more. And I didn't have to share with everybody that I was a recovering alcoholic. I'm Angelo. There's more to me than just this dis-ease that I have, okay? But when I drink, that's all I am. That's all I'm progressive, incurable, yeah. Fatal, thank you, higher power, for all the examples you've given me. And I want to be an example that it's possible that you don't have to do that.
Gigi, how about you? Do you ever feel jealous for those that could drink safely, especially early in your recovery?
Yeah, although for me, it was tied up in codependency because I was addicted to romantic love and the current man whom I'd made my higher power. So, of course, all those men that I'd made my higher power were also drinkers. And so when I quit, I didn't know how to be me because I only knew how to be the altered me with the alcohol or drugs. So I was like a fish out of water. I remember the first time I went to a party and I stood in the doorway and I looked at all the people and I thought, oh, now I know why I drank. Because looking at that whole room full of people, it was like, whoa. So for me, it wasn't so much jealousy. It was like, what the hell do I do now? And I didn't have any sober friends yet, so I was between a rock and a hard place. I couldn't drink, keep my friends, and I had to have new friends, but I didn't know where to find them. Fortunately, I did eventually find them in meetings.
Buddy, I'd like you, again, expand a little bit more about, fighting off this depression, because I think it's important. It's an important concept. It was really a big part of my early recovery, and that is dealing with the depression of losing my best friend, losing my persona, losing my image. Really I was going through a grieving process of having to leave that old person behind and find the real Mark. And for me, it was depression. And you pointed towards the steps in the program was vital. Those were the tools that you needed and helped you along the program. It's really important for the new person to know that. But what about even for me, acceptance was a big part of it. How does acceptance play in this as well? Fighting off depression with acceptance.
Well, when I went through that process, Mark, I really focused on the solution and tried not to focus on what I was giving up, but what I was getting. Alcohol was killing me. I had pancreatitis, lost 90% of my pancreas. It had 2 surgeries, lost 60 pounds. I was down to 133 pounds when I got out of the hospital. Within a couple of months, I was drinking again. So the depression was offset by the misery of knowing this was fatal. It was killing me. And there had to be some solution. I had to come to some solution with this that would save my life. So I just focused, there's a saying that if you spend your time doing the do's, you won't have time to do the don'ts. And so I tried to spend a lot of time on the positives with that, even through that 6 years that I was drinking off and on. I knew I had seen the solution and I knew it was there, and I just kept doing what I saw others do, and I knew eventually it would work for me. I had hope. So I think I moved from depression to hope pretty quick.
Gigi, I'd like to get your thoughts on acceptance. as it plays early in someone's recovery, maybe your experience or maybe the experience you've noticed in some of your sponsees, why and how is acceptance a big part of people's programs?
I was so ground down by my emotional pain and so at my wit's end. I didn't have the physical consequences, but I couldn't get happy. I couldn't make anything work. So my emotional pain was severe. And, when I heard, okay, this is a disease, there are people going to meetings, healing the disease and laughing and having fun, I had to say this, for me, this was the easier, softer way. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, I'll throw in the towel. I never did drink again by the grace of God because I did 6 months of experimentation of trying to drink only 2 drinks and teaching myself that that was impossible, that when I had 2 drinks, I might have 3, 4, 5, 6 and do really dangerous, scary stuff. So it was a relief to just say, oh, I have a disease. I guess I'll have to treat it like these people do.
For me, Gigi, acceptance did give me relief. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. It was such a big part of my early recovery, and my sponsor could see it, that it was important for me to grasp onto that concept because I was gripping. He could see me just trying to be sober so bad, trying to make my family life better, trying to, be fit in with the fellowship, really gripping it. And he just needed me. He suggested that I just need to accept life for the way it is at this moment and really try to stay in that present moment. Don't regret. Don't have all that regret about the past. Don't fear so much about the future. Just stay in the day and be grateful for what you have. And acceptance was the way I did that. Accept my situation for exactly the way it was and is, and to learn by other people's example that they used acceptance. They accepted their disease concept. They accepted a lot of difficulties in their life, and they relied on a higher power to get through it and to be with the fellowship, not to be alone. It was so important for me not to be alone. Don't get all caught up in my head, but to share what's inside my head. Share that with someone else. Acceptance and really staying in the middle of the program helped me with those early depressions and not worry so much about the damage of the past. There's steps to help me deal with that. And, leave those using friends behind and stay plugged in with the herd because I needed to hear their stories. I need to get hope from their stories, from your stories. Buddy, I wanted to move to you and let's talk about the prayer, serenity prayer. How about serenity prayer? How does that help you with some of these things that we're talking about?
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. When I started the program, when I started in recovery, there were so many things I thought I controlled that I thought I could change. And the longer I've been in recovery, it's like a seesaw. It's gone the other direction. There's hardly nothing I can control. And there's so many things I can't change. That's where the acceptance comes in. And I think that's ever changing with me, Mark, is that I'm learning how to accept more and more. And rather than everything being as it should be, it seems to be I'm accepting everything as it is, which is a little different. I'm not passing judgment on what is. If it's as it should be, I'm saying this is as it should be. No, I think it's more of just is. It just is what it is. A lot of, I had a perception issue because I did not see things the way they were, and I still don't see everything the way it is. But that's getting better. And that was my problem. I didn't see things how they really were. That's our whole topic tonight about alcoholism. If it were a fatal disease, we might as well all just give up if there's no answer.
Right.
But there's a solution.
There is.
So I have to change my perception.
Right. You have to accept that good news. There is a solution.
Exactly.
Exactly. Angelo, let's talk about this disease as progressive. What's your understanding of what that means? How did you learn about diseases being a progressive, alcoholism being progressive, and how did that relate to your story?
So for me, when I first came in, I thought that because I wanted to be a part of this thing, that all of these meetings, right? And, I said a lot of first step tables, and back then there were a lot of war stories sharing and blah, blah, blah. So I started embellishing my story. Okay, and next thing you know, I'm telling people that I was drinking 2/5 a day. Okay. Because I wanted to be as progressive, there's a star to shoot for. I'm going to be the most progressive, And God bless her, if she's alive, she's 100 plus. Margaret stopped me in the middle of my conversation and said, Angelo, cut it out. Okay? You didn't drink 2 quarts of alcohol a day. That didn't happen. I know that didn't happen. She goes, you can quit lying. She said, I'm going to make it really easy for you. If after you take the first drink, you can't guarantee your actions, good or bad, you're probably an alcoholic. And that she just hit me with a 2x4. And it's like, she's right. Because I didn't drink like everybody, but in some instances I did. And so everybody's got their quota, is what I've heard it called. And I reached my quota at a very young age. So these examples have been, like I've alluded to already, gifts from the cosmic universe, whatever you want to call that. And Margaret was one of those people early on. So progression for me was easy. But I know that other folks struggled with this concept of it being progressive. And so, we all have a different journey in this program. And whatever brought us here, we didn't trip into Alcoholics Anonymous, into a recovery meeting, if it's Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever addiction. You didn't accidentally fall in there. Okay. Something has happened. And that obsession of the mind is what's gotten you there. And that whole physical that's happened has brought you to this program. And there is a solution, as we've been talking about. And that solution, unfortunately, is us.
Or fortunately. Gigi, what about you? Was there a time that you could drink safely?
Not really. I mean, the first time I drank in high school, I had a blackout and everybody said how wonderful I was. I was jumping off the high dive and, oh man, I loved it. I didn't drink very often because I got terrible hangovers. That's why discovering marijuana was so helpful for me, because I could go away and numb myself without, the getting sick from the alcohol. But it did progress. I like to think of the progression as like if you look at a chart and the line is going up, up, up. And as time goes on, that line is going up because it means the disease is getting worse, even if I'm not indulging in it, if I'm not drinking. And so for me, the idea of that progressive thing is that even though I stopped X number of years ago, if I started again, I would not pick up where I left off. I would pick up at this advanced level that the disease had progressed while I was not drinking. And I hear that story all the time, that it's way worse than anyone ever thought it could be when they start again. And as we've said, a lot of people don't make it through.
What about the idea that this is incurable disease, buddy? What's your understanding of that? What's your experience?
That I do not have enough willpower to stop drinking. It's not possible. For me, that's how I see that, Mark. I do not have the ability to stop drinking once I start. I needed a God of my understanding to help me with that. I needed a solution I found in the steps, really, that helped me to surrender to this alcohol. And I had no idea how to do any of this when I came into recovery. It was a totally foreign, surrender was a foreign concept to me. I never I never had to surrender in my life. I was told to do the opposite, to work harder and do better, and everything would work out. Well, that's not true. At least not for alcohol, it wasn't true. Then I realized, once I learned how to surrender for alcohol, I learned I could surrender in all these other areas of life and have so much better life and more peace and joy than me depending on my own will and my self-effort. So it's just been a gift all around, not only for my alcoholism, but for my entire life, it's been a gift.
So, buddy, the program is giving you much more than just the ability to not drink, right?
Oh, by far, Mark. That's just the tip of the iceberg. It really is. Not having to drink today is just the beginning. It's just the beginning.
You know, for me, I did try to moderate. You know, there's a time in my drinking career that I could see, Angela, I could see the writing on the wall. It was affecting my relationships. It was affecting my marriage. It was affecting my ability to be an employee. It was affecting my ability to be a father in the way I thought I should be. And so I tried to moderate, and I was not successful. I was not successful at that at all. You know, the disease did progress. And I could see, looking back on it, how it was incurable. That is, trying something different, trying to drink differently was not working for me. For other people, and the big book even talks about it, for the heavy drinker, some of them, if they have a good enough reason, can moderate or stop. A lot of those people have DUIs. A lot of those people end up in jail. A lot of those people are not the type of alcoholic that I am. Some of those people have been able to moderate and live a life with alcohol still in their lives. It's not possible for me. That's my story. And because this program has asked me to examine my drinking career, take the time, put it on paper, and what has alcohol done in my life? What has it done for me? And what has it done to me? And really looking at that, examining that life, I came to the conclusion that for me, this type of alcoholic, it is incurable because I tried. I tried to stop. I tried to moderate. I always went back to my best friend at that time, which really is a ruthless killer. A ruthless killer because, Angela, you talked about it by the example of other people that drink like me, have the disease like me, that continue drinking. It's not a pretty picture at the end. And so I could see that. And so I really decided that moment, Angelo, to really go all in, and to really put all my efforts towards this program. And that meant a lot of sacrifice. That meant sacrifice at my work. That meant sacrifice as far as my ability to parent. It's because I had to go to meetings all the time. I had to work steps. I had to go see my sponsor. And so that took time away from my other, as I perceived, responsibilities. But I could see that if I didn't get the drinking under control, that I was going to lose everything else anyway. And so I'm very grateful for good sponsorship that way, because I really wanted to drink again.
Yeah.
I wasn't that honest to myself at that moment, but the reason I was so mired in depression was because I was grieving so hard about having to give that up. And so, you know, it wasn't until I could see that the writing was on the wall for me, and to accept it, and then to be grateful, like Buddy said, to be grateful for the situation that I'm in. Be grateful that I have these tools to help me cope, because you promised me that this program is not all about not drinking. It's about living to the fullest, about finding the best example of myself, to living that way. And so that's good news. That is good news for everyone. How about for you, Angelo? How do you have fun without alcohol? How do you have fun? How do you enjoy a full life without drugs and alcohol?
So I'll get to that one second. I had this thought while you were talking, Mark.
Sure.
That sparked. You know, you talked about that moderation while you were attempting, and a lot of us have tried that. But, you know, what I thought of, and you alluded to it, was when I was trying to moderate, the resentments that I would get from having to moderate. Okay. And then when I got in the program and I got in the middle of the program, it's funny because I had to go to meetings, and I didn't resent that so much because I was actually getting, be it as small as it was, meeting with my sponsor, going to meetings, I was getting this other type of a feeling, okay? And it wasn't resentment. It wasn't resentment. And so, but as far as having fun today, I am a maniac, okay? There's just no doubt about it, okay? And do I still do crazy things today without thinking? Yes, I'm still an alcoholic. I still sometimes mentally go off the hook. But the difference is I don't put my life in danger like I did when I was drinking and drugging, okay? That is not the maniac type things that I do today. I love to go out to have good food and experience different food. And that's kind of a thing for my wife and I, is to go out and just, do small plates and have that community sense. And so that's one thing that I do for fun. Hobbies, I hunt. I love to hunt. I've gotten into meditation, which helps me a lot. Causes me to pause and to think about those crazy thoughts and how I'm going to act on them. Serenity prayer and prayers are really a way that I just kind of pause. And for fun today, it's more about reducing the drama around me. And by reducing the drama, I become more open to experiences. And that is the other thing that this program is really, one of the real gifts is being present in the moment and really being able to listen to people and hear their story, even those that aren't in the program. And just another tool that I've gotten that my relationships, like you talked about, are much deeper today. And they have meaning to them. And as I am able to listen, it's amazing how people want to open up more, because I'm actively listening to them, and they get that sense. And so I'm feeling more connected to my community than when I was drinking and drugging. Okay, when I was drinking and drugging, I wasn't connected to my community. So those are just some of the things that, I know it doesn't sound like it's all these wild fun times, but my life is simpler today, and I enjoy that simple life.
How about you, Gigi? What about having fun? It's really important for us to talk to the newcomer at this point to assure them that life can be lived to its fullest, and that fun and a full life is possible. What's your experience? How do you have fun? How do you recreate?
Yeah, I was so lonely when I came into the program, because I always had just one main man and then one female using buddy. And I didn't know how to relate to women, really, because I had always, hung out with the men and thought I was this tough guy. And the biggest change, and it takes a while, but when I started going to enough meetings, and those women would greet me as I came in the door, and I started hearing some women talk who really made sense to me. I started getting friends, healthy female friends. And for example, my first sponsor would ask me, to go out for coffee. And then sometimes she would invite myself and a couple of other women over to her house. And then someone else would invite us over to do something. And, that increased slowly, but it increased. And I have never laughed so hard as I have with a group of recovering women. I was just at a friend's 85th birthday party this past Saturday, and there were about 20 of us around the table. And it was 90% women in recovery. And oh my God, we were laughing and having so much fun. And it was such a joy. Yeah.
What a beautiful thing that pandemic's over with, and we can enjoy each other face to face again.
Yeah.
And something that we have not experienced and been deprived of for the past several months. And so what a joy it is to be able to be face to face. How about for you, buddy? How do you recreate? How do you have fun? Talk to that new person. Assure them that it's possible.
Well, when I came in, the fun was already over. It had been over for a long time. There was no fun. I didn't know where fun was. I was very lonely. Like Gigi was talking about, I think the real gift when I came in was that I didn't have to be alone anymore. You know, it wasn't a matter of me looking for fun. It was me just being so lonely. I wouldn't even go through a drive-through by myself. I mean, that just sounds crazy, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't do anything alone. You could forget it. I would rather starve than eat out alone. Wouldn't happen. So I had the wife and kids at home, and the misery was there all of the time. So I would just stress to the newcomer, you just don't have to be alone anymore. Your ideas of fun change. Your perception of what fun is changes. And when we start feeling that real love of others that is unearned and without any hooks, you know what I mean when I say that. You know, they're not wanting anything in return. When we start seeing that and experiencing that, that takes the place of what we thought we were looking for, and it really was what we were looking for the whole time. So that's what I'd stress to the newcomer, Mark. You just don't have to be alone anymore. Just go in, start parroting someone who you see has what you want, and give it a month or two. One of the local sayings here is, we'll gladly refund your misery. And I believe that's true. You know, you come in and try it, see if it works for you. What do you have to lose?
You know, buddy, I like that idea that your perception of fun changes. Now, I did examine the things that I like to have fun, or I like to do, how I like to recreate before my disease got a hold of me. And so